Today we're just going to be making a graphic t-shirt. It's going to be real basic. I'm not going to get too much into it, but this is going to be a quick tutorial on Adobe Substance Painter and the meta models for Meta Horizon Worlds. Now we're going to go to our creator page. Digital items. And here's all the different clothes I've made, but we're going to go to create avatar item. And this will give us all the different 3D models to choose from. Since today we're going to be making a basic baggy t-shirt, we're going to click that. You could just go ahead and create using the built-in AI to make some textures, but for us, I'm going to be creating something with PNG or something more detailed where we can choose exactly where we want the graphic, exactly what we want on it. So we're going to go to download design files. It's going to go to our download folder, and I'm going to open this with WinRAR or any extracting software would work. I'm going to extract to desktop. I'm just going to create a new folder called t-shirt baggy to keep it a little bit more organized. If you have a bunch of different t-shirts, then that would keep them grouped together. And we're going to leave this open, but we're going to minimize it for later. So when we upload this texture, we'll still have this page open. So now we have our baggy t-shirt. We have our model, our base texture, and a UV guide. Now we don't really need to use this UV guide for this, but it's good to have if you want to help with aligning certain things directly in the middle. But what we're going to do is we're going to open Adobe Substance Painter. Maybe you have some sort of other software, but this is probably my favorite. It has a built-in real-time 3D model and texture, so this is what I like. We're going to File, New. If we already had a project, we could do Open, but since we don't, we're going to go to New. And for the Meta Horizon Worlds models, you're going to have to change some settings. So just take a quick look at my settings to make sure they look similar to yours. And I think the main ones you need to change or make sure are the same. Use UV tile workflow. This is going to give us different tile maps that we can swap in between. Convert to individual. Auto unwrap. So we're going to go to options for auto unwrap. Make sure that this is all the same, because if not, the maps when they get unwrapped are going to be all over the place. So just make sure this looks the same. And now we're going to go to File, Select. And what we're going to do, go to Desktop, T-shirt baggy, that's where we have our model. Click the model, open, OK. And here we go. So this 3D environment can be a little bit overwhelming at first. It is a lot like Paint, but there's a lot of little things to look at. So on our left, we have all of our different materials. You know, we got some fabrics, we got like grass, but these are all your different models or materials, and you can swap through different materials, brushes, textures, but your main ones that you're going to be using are in the base materials. On our right side, this is our main texture map. So this is basically what this is, this flat texture, and this is what we're going to be uploading to Meta. So for exporting reasons, this will be the export name. So we're going to change that right now to baggy shirt. And then that will be good to go for later. For these, we have two layers. Now, this layer 1 automatically comes up. This is just a basic paint layer. We can delete this, or we can use it in combination. So I'm going to go to this pink texture, fabric cotton jersey. And now if I drag this directly onto the shirt, it would just create a whole new layer with it. Now, this can be easy and you can do it like this, but what I like to do is I drag this all the way over to this little paintbrush and put it in there. Now, this is something that you should get into a routine of doing because you're going to be using masks later on. It just keeps everything together in a way where you can have full control over your different paint layers. And if you wanted to change the name of this to like base fabric, just to keep everything all nice, you can do that. For this, it's going to be super simple, so it's really not needed. Now, if I take this away, this imported textures, this is the texture that comes with the model. This is what we call a normal map, and this is a baked-in shading shader with the shadows and this like roughness texture. So when I take it away, you can see how shiny it gets and how bland it gets. And it's actually not adding any 3D geometry to it. It's just adding this faux shadow. And now if you wanted to accentuate these shadows, maybe in a more detailed model, you could do copy layer, paste layer, and this doubles it up. So if you see how much more shading and shadows it gives you. This is really good for seams. But for this one, since it's real basic, we're not going to be using it. So I'm just going to remove that layer. Now, for our third window, it's your paint properties. So paint properties are what you're painting with. We have our fabric cotton jersey texture that we're using. Make sure you click this so that's selected, because if you click this is just your basic paintbrush, but this is your texture settings, like your paint texture that you applied. So as you can see, this has some like grid lines for a fabric kind of texture, and I don't want that because it's gonna ruin the graphic quality that we're gonna be importing on top of this. So we can change tiling. The different tile, as you can see, it gets bigger and smaller. So I'm just going to yank it all the way up so it's so small you can barely see it. It still has some cotton texture, which I like, but now we don't have those seams. And for this one, we're just going to use, I guess, a basic white. And as you can see, this is a little bit overexposed. Now, I think this is a good time to talk about Adobe Substance Painter's inbuilt lighting system. So as you can see, we have this harsh light coming from the right side, and this is going to get baked into this texture if we export it like this. So we have this washed out shoulder, and we don't want that. We want everything to be fully covered. Obviously, we still do want some shadows so it doesn't look like a completely flat shirt, but we want a more uniform lighting. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to this right side, this little display setting, click it, and you have your environment map. So right now it's on panorama, and it has all these different scenes, these lighting scenes. And what I found is this soft one front, two backs. This is going to give you a fully soft front and the two backs, which gives you two lights on the back. Now this looks really washed out. So it's the exposure that's washing it out. We just have too much light. So we can like adjust this light up and down to find where we usually want it to go. What I like to do, just by default of what I found works good, is negative 0.8 is a good range, just because you still get all your details. It's still very bright, and what ends up happening is this is going to look a lot darker when you're in world. There's in-game shadows, in-game lighting, but by default most worlds are going to make your clothes look a little bit darker than they actually are. So I like to make my clothes just like a tad bit, like 5-10% lighter than I would normally let them. So as you can see, This is pretty good. It's a little dark on the back, light on the front. You know, this is a basic lighting, but this is the one that I found to work best. Now, if we're going down to different settings, you can have fabric color variation. I know it's kind of hard to see with so much lighting and a basic white texture, but if you had another color, this would give you like speckling of lights and darks. I just don't want any variation right now because we're going to be using a graphic and I just want this completely flat. I don't want any speckling. And then fabric roughness. So this is going to make it shiny or flat, basically, like a flat matte paint. As you can see, if you drag it all the way to the left, you get this like specular lighting around the edges. You don't want that because it makes it look plasticky. So we're going to yank the fabric brightness all the way up. It's going to be completely flat. Now we have this perfect canvas to work with. I'm just going to make some more room for our layers because what's next is we're going to be importing the graphic that we want. So there's a few ways that you could do this. You can get creative in a lot of different ways. So for something very simple, you could go to Google. You know, you could type in like some sort of PNG. Anything with a white background, specifically if you're working on a white shirt, is gonna work pretty well. You might have a box around the picture, but it's gonna be so subtle that I don't think anyone would notice. But what you're looking for is PNGs with the transparent background. This is gonna be perfect for something that you can import and then you don't have to worry about cutting it out. Now, for this tutorial, I'm just going to show you a few tricks on what you can do. You know, you don't want to get copyrighted, so I'm going to bring up Google Gemini, and I'm just going to type in like funny guy face, solid white background. Now, this is going to generate something. Obviously, you can play around with this and try different styles or graphics that you might want. You could even do words or lettering. Play around with that. And you can obviously change what kind. Okay, this is pretty silly, but for what we're doing, this is good. So I chose a solid white background because it's going to give you a white edge around this. And so what I can do is I can download this, and the only problem with this is that it doesn't have a transparent background. So what we could do is we could throw this right on the shirt now, but I don't want to do that because I want to make sure that everything is perfectly matched. So there are a couple ways that you could play with this, and I guess I'll show you what to do in this scenario where you can't remove the background. So we're gonna we're gonna go to materials. Down in this bottom right is a plus sign. Now this is where you import different materials. So if you download any new textures, you import them through here. This is where you're gonna import pictures or fonts or logos. And what we're gonna do is add resource. We're gonna go to our downloads and we're gonna click our funny guy face. And undefined is by default, but we want to go to alpha, import, and now we see it down here. And if you want to give it a proper name, it would be easier to find later, but this is going to be saved in all of your files for later. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag and drop this right under our flat texture map. Now this left one is the front, so we're going to put it on there. Base color, this is going to give you the most color. Other masks and everything will give you opacity, or you know, for different uses, if you have like a metallic texture you want to put on or roughness texture, fine, but we're doing a graphic, so it's gonna be base color. Now as you can see, this is a little warped because by default everything has to be a square when you import it. Now what we can do is we can stretch it out, and if you're afraid of stretching it out too much, that's something that you want to be aware of to crop for before you import this. But what we're going to do is we're going to stretch them out, and if you want a this is also just like a basic painting software thing. What we can do is Alt Shift, or sorry, holding Control keeps it centered. Control Shift keeps the ratio with it centered, so you can kind of play with that. And then I don't think I told you how to navigate this area. So in your basic settings, your 3D model here on the left, if you try to just drag, it's not going to do anything, or it's going to paint. So what you need to do is hold Alt while moving your cursor, dragging your cursor, and you get this free rotating camera, which is nice to get a certain angle. Now if you want to pan around, it's Alt Control and then drag. And then if you want to snap rotate, Alt Shift. So this will snap to the closest 90-degree angle. And then obviously scroll wheel to zoom in and out, just like a basic paint program. But this is going to be something that you're going to want to learn. So I'm going to use Alt Control to go up to the shoulder. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hold Alt so I can free zoom, Control Alt again to move around. Like, this is something that you're going to get used to, moving around the environment so you can really get those details. But that's just how you move around the environment. So same thing in here. Control Alt to pan around, scroll wheel to zoom in. But here's the thing. So we have our picture. You can obviously see how this white is not matching with our white. Now, that can be a problem if you're finicky with how that looks. And what we can do is we can go to our fabric, the base white fabric that we put on. And we're going to go to technical parameters at the bottom. Now there's a few different options. You can mess with the contrast. Turn that up. You can go to luminosity, saturation, different stuff like that. But the problem is this AI generated texture, it didn't give me a perfectly solid white background. It gave me this creamy background. Now, by default, these are at 0.5. So that's why I'm saying, sorry, they're at like halfway. Or 0.5, but that's something to be aware of. If you want a fully flat background, you're gonna have to tell the AI to generate pure white. Or what you can do is we can go to our downloads, open this in some sort of photo editor. I mean, if you have Photoshop, I use GIMP because it's free. And obviously this is so much harder than it needs to be. This is doing it by hand. And I can give you a few things that you could go do. But we can do the magic wand. Click it, change your threshold. It's kind of annoying. You gotta fiddle with your threshold to kind of get it so it's not cutting anything off. And you could do that. This would be a pretty good map right here. So you would want to add an alpha channel, which this one already has. So we can go to the eraser tool, erase it. Now we basically have a PNG. Now we could save this and be good. I mean, this is sufficient. Like, this is pretty good. This is all you really need. It's not the best, and it was slow, and you still have these edges. But there's programs out there now, so you can just do, AI remove background PNG. And there's so many things. There's so many different websites. So this is Pixel Cut AI, and you could do this, upload it, and bam, it's already done. Now this site obviously has some a limit, and you might have to pay over time, but for what we're doing, this is very simple. There's tons and tons of websites that do this. So I'm just going to download this. It says 3 downloads for today. We're just going to download it. And now we have this new PNG file. This is perfect. So we're going to go back in here. I'm going to delete this picture because this one is not the PNG. I was just kind of giving you a show of what it could look like if you don't have a PNG. But if you have a PNG, you could have skipped all these steps. So we're going to go back to add resource. We got our PNG, alpha, remember that, import. Now we can drag and drop it, base color, so it's on full color. And again, we can stretch it a little bit, and look at that. Control shift to full expand zoom. And now I don't know where you would want it exactly, but let's just say that's good right there, right in the middle. And this is where your UV guides would be nice, but for our use, you know, you can fiddle with this, upload the texture, move it around if you need it. But we're basically done at this point. This is good. We're all set. And so at this point, you can do whatever you want. You can add fonts if you want. You have these different fonts that you can choose from. You could use AI to add fonts and then make a PNG out of it. You could change the color of the shirt that you want. You know, you could make the texture more grainy. So you see how there's these like grainy textures. You could go to materials. These are your base materials. You could change this fabric cotton material completely into, you know, whatever you want. Like, let's use clovers. So we're gonna drag and drop that onto the paint. We're gonna delete our old texture, and like, see how it has these like height maps on it? That is a little funky. So you could do the tiling, you know, fiddle with that for the size. But if you have these like weird shadows, these are height maps. So it's putting this height under it, and you can turn the height on and off with this. Then you also would have to kind of screw with the different height maps in these settings down here. This isn't exactly the best example, but this is why I like to use this base fabric cotton jersey texture, just because you don't have to screw with your height maps. So like I said, I'm gonna yank the tiling all the way so it's nice and flat. You know, you got this funny guy. You can change the color of the shirt. You know, maybe yellow, because, or no, you don't want something too close to what he is. You want some, or, you know, like basic black, gray. We'll keep it to the white, since we have that white background. He has some lighting on him that's white, so I think it matches it pretty well. Your roughness, you know, if you want a plasticky looking shirt, go for it, but I put my roughness all the way up. Fabric variation, so there's no speckles. Turn it all the way down, and this is it. Like, you're good to go. You know, you can click on him, you can adjust him, stretch him around to wherever he needs to be. You could even layer stuff on top of him, add some more details, some words. But we're gonna export now, so this blue button is your export. We already named this texture to baggy shirt, so we're good to go. We're gonna click export textures, because this is what we need to upload to Meta. And by default, these are gonna be your settings. So this is kind of annoying because you have to change these every time unless you have a project already started. So for me, I'm gonna change my folder to t-shirt baggy, because then every time that I make a t-shirt, it's gonna go in that folder, and then if I ever need to like edit one of my t-shirt textures, they're all gonna be in that folder. And then your output templates 2D view, because your 2D view is this, and this is what you want. This is what we upload to Meta. So that's all you need. Choose a folder. You know, you could put it on your desktop, I don't care, but I'm trying to keep it all neat. 2D view, export. You could save your settings for next time, and then you're good to go. What we have now, t-shirt baggy, look, this is our texture map. Doesn't this look beautiful? This is fully done. Now what we can do is we can go back to Meta, upload texture file. We're going to go to our t-shirt baggy, and there he is. And look at that, we have a fully made t-shirt. Now we could go to avatar views to kind of look at some of the warping, especially if you're making shirts for women. You're going to want to be aware of this, is that there is warping that happens with the shirts. If someone has a chest. So if you're trying to do a graphic shirt, you might want to put it kind of above, like up here. See how his brow is kind of warped. For most people, this is gonna work. There's a lot of guys, especially if you're making like meme shirts, this is just gonna work. This is gonna be the base of what you're gonna see. There's a lot of kids in Meta, so a lot of them are gonna have like a body type kind of like this. But there's some more eccentric body types, and you just want to be aware of that. There's going to be some stretching that happens, so just take that into account for what type of clothing you're making. So what we're going to do is we're going to save the item. It might take a second because it is uploading the texture. And this is where you want to be careful. See listing details. Alright. You have your base name, what you want to call it, like funny chicken head. Oop. Funny chicken head guy. Description. Now, this is where you're gonna put all your tags. This could be like meme, guy, chicken, funny, haha, white, baggy, t-shirt. Now you're gonna want to put in all the things that might be like pertinent to this type of shirt, because when people search for shirts or clothing in the Meta store using tags, if you have the correct tag, it could be showing up. So this is where you're gonna want to put in all those search tags. Your main name is what's gonna show when people click on it, but your description is what the search is gonna be looking at. Now for price, 75 credits, that's gonna make you around 24 cents. You could increase the prices. I'd recommend, if you're starting out, start off cheap, 75. These are very simple shirts. You're not trying to impress anyone. You didn't take time to make anything extravagant. But put your work out there, see if it sells, and you know what works. So you want to make sure allow people to acquire outside of your worlds, because if not, you're the only person that's going to have it unless you add it to a world. So you're going to want to make sure that this is blue check marked, and then you would click save. And I'm not going to save, because once you click save, this shirt that you made is going to go into your clothing, your outfit storage. So you want to be careful with that. You don't want to be uploading stuff willy-nilly, saving it, because you're going to overload your closet with with a bunch of stuff. So I'm just gonna delete this. This was just a tutorial, but I hope this helps anyone who's looking to get started in very basic clothing. There's a lot of different things you can do, and take it one step at a time. Try out different textures, screw around with these different settings down here. You have height maps, you got metal, rough, you have all these different channels that you can screw with. I would just fool around and see what you get, and each material has its own setting. So I would just remember Fabric cotton jersey, probably the easiest. If you're going to be making just a basic shirt, that's where you're going to want to go. And then also with your lighting feature, your display setting, just make sure that you have even lighting. You know, screw around with the EVs to where you want it. If you want it lighter, darker. There is some other things that you could do. Say you have this and you want to change the color, you can add levels. Now, this is where you can be kind of screwy and kind of be artistic. Now, you can go to these different color channels. Now, I could screw around. Sorry. Not on this one. Go to your picture. Add levels. Now, these are your color channels. So you got blues. You know, you can really screw around with these. So just fiddle around and see what you get. Save often. You know, files, save as. Make a save before you do any of this. And then just screw around and see what you get. Like maybe you want like a metallic shirt. And you know, this gives it that metallic look. There's a bunch of different little things that you can do. So definitely test out things. Don't be afraid to make. And put yourself out there. Good luck, everybody. And thank you for watching.